it doesn't need to be the same dish every single time. Part of it is the experience. So every single time that you make something should be unique. Why should we have something that's super replicable? We're not cooking for a restaurant. You're cooking for your family.
Welcome to episode 2 of Unprepared. I know it's been a while since I've released a podcast episode, mostly because I've been in wedding busy season, so I've been shooting and editing wedding videos nonstop. If you want to check those out, they're available at thebrothersgorman.com. But nonetheless, I'm pretty much done with weddings for this season and looking forward to having a good amount of time off this winter. I have a new song coming out and a bunch of new YouTube videos in the works, so be on the lookout for those. Anyway, in this podcast, I interviewed my friends Terry and Heather, who just published the Immeasurable Cookbook, which is essentially a lifestyle cookbook without actual recipes. I had a great time hearing about their book, which is just so much more than a cookbook, and I really think they created something incredibly special. Well, incredible and special. But anyway, enjoy the show. Let me know what you think. There's also a discount code for my listeners, which I'm going to put in the podcast description, as well as the links for finding Terry and Heather on social media. So be sure to show them some love. And on with the show. So, welcome to the first podcast in the new studio.
Right on.
Pretty sweet. I got Heather and Terry here from Colorado. Terry's a long-term friend who just wrote this book called The Immeasurable Cookbook. And so, I figured he'd be a perfect guest to kind of talk about it. I know nothing about the cookbook, so I have so many questions.
Thanks for the research.
Exactly. But part of the whole purpose of this was so that, because I don't want to do research, so I want to
Unprepared.
Yeah, have just innocent questions and just kind of go through it. So yeah, so what inspired all this?
Actually, my sister inspired the whole project. It was almost exactly a year ago. We do Secret Santa with my family, and she was my Secret Santa. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas, and she said, 'cause she doesn't cook. She's a terrible cook.
And Heather's a badass cook.
That's right. And so I asked, what do you want for Christmas? She said, can you write down some of your recipes? And he had his brother for his Secret Santa, and we just kind of started thinking, how can we kill two birds with one stone? We started growing the idea a little bit, bouncing ideas off each other, and it was getting more and more ridiculous, but as it became more ridiculous, it became more fun. And we decided that I would do all the photography and some of the recipe design. He would do the writing of the recipes. And then we just started pushing it farther and farther. And before long, we thought, why not ditch measurements altogether? We don't have to write a cookbook the way that cookbooks are meant to be written.
Yeah, so the short of it is really it's a no measurements lifestyle cookbook. So all of the recipes are actually written like stories or poems. And all of the ingredients or the cooking techniques are capitalized within the recipes. So you're reading...
Or what do you mean capitalized?
Literally
capitalized. Like, you don't really know you're reading a recipe, but you're reading a story, and you'll come across, let's say, chicken would be capitalized with a capital C.
You don't capitalize the whole word?
No. So anything that's not relevant to the actual recipe is going to be lowercase.
Yeah, so it's called the Immeasurable Cookbook because, one, it has no measurements, and two, it's kind of have this theme throughout the whole book about the most important things in life are immeasurable. We weave in a bunch of stories about stuff that we've done in Colorado and in New York and all these different projects we've taken on, and how all those things are really important, especially when it comes to cooking, because it's, you can't really replicate a dish the same way twice. And when you put those constraints on somebody, I think it creates a little bit of fear. But when you break that down, we'd like to have the kitchen as a place for people to come together and freely explore cooking. And that's what the recipes are all about.
That's pretty cool. And then basically you have, what kind of stories is it?
Well, we wanted to have...
They go all over the place. Shit gets weird.
Yeah, it definitely gets weird at some points. We wanted to have kind of this lifestyle angle to the book, because when it's just standalone recipes, and especially when they're written in kind of an abstract way, it's just kind of this compilation of food. But when we really started to break down why we were doing it, we realized that so much of it is tradition and culture and eating together and community. So we thought, how do we weave in these lifestyle pieces? Because at the end of the day, cooking is lifestyle. Cooking at its best is bringing community together. It's bringing family together and all of that. So we, throughout the recipes, have just landed these what we call lifestyle pieces into it and woven our story into the stories of the recipes and all of that.
Mm. And so there's got to be some sort of a recipe.
It's pretty loose.
It's in there though. It's almost kind of a scavenger hunt, because if you read the recipe, it's at first it might be a story or a narrative or something, and so you read it and you get this visual and some dialogue and everything. But if you actually break it all away and kind of strip the narrative away, all of a sudden you're left with what is kind of a semblance of a recipe. So if you want, you can take all of the fluff out, and then the bones are still there. The bones are still a recipe. But we've just kind of cushioned it with color and dialogue and everything.
So would you consider making a version that's just recipe? Like a strip, like a Cliff Notes, I guess, for it?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I think that's what this book's standing
Yeah.
against.
Yeah.
I mean, we also took this approach because we wanted to kind of bring a open experience to both the amateur and the expert. So actually in my first reviews, I guess, I'm learning that amateurs are just completely terrified of the recipes because there's no measurements, and people are really scared, when they can't measure stuff. And we're finding it more received by experts who know how to cook, who know how to play flavors off one another, that it's not, it's not a big obstacle for them to just know what ingredients are in the dish, see what we can do, and then they just play with it after that.
And just kind of enjoy the stories. And everything.
Yeah, but we try to take the literary approach also to encourage the amateurs to be kind of fuck it, go for it, just get some ingredients, get in the kitchen with your family, your friends, and just go for it. You read it. They're all in different accents or different stories. So
what do you mean different accents?
So we have a bunch of different cuisines. We got Italian, we got Thai, we got one
Greek.
We got a Greek, we got one that's like Irish stout cake, so it's read in an Irish leprechaun accent. so it's supposed to be fun, and just writing all this stuff, I was just laughing all the time to myself, and Heather would know, oh man, he's coming up with some stupid stuff.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me was in terms of amateur cooks, finally having permission to make mistakes. Because when you look at some of these recipes in a traditional cookbook, it's daunting. They don't leave any room for interpretation. It's very exact. It's very prescribed. And at first, I think amateur cooks feel like they need that because they don't know what they're doing. But this is really the first cookbook that gives them permission to make mistakes and kind of lifts all of these expectations. And that kind of, I think, is important for a lot of amateur cooks, is to have something that finally says, make this your own and make mistakes and learn as you go and kind of feel it out. And it doesn't need to be the same dish every single time. Part of it is the experience. So every single time that you make something should be unique. Why should we have something that's super replicable? We're not cooking for a restaurant. You're cooking for your family. And it's nice.
That's a solid quote. That was a solid quote.
I know. Probably won't happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're cooking for a restaurant, you're definitely going to want some consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not you shouldn't be taking a restaurant concept and basing. I mean, you could, but you want a little more consistency in a restaurant. You want to know what you're getting, and that's the big angle on fast food. Why people like that, they're willing to eat things that are not as good if they know what they're getting. But I think in the kitchen in your own home, it shouldn't be like that, and that's part of what I think our food culture is lacking, especially in, the American household right now. People just aren't eating at home anymore. And it's a big problem environmentally and I think culturally. And there's so many things that it impacts that we don't even think about.
Definitely. Yeah, this thing would be so perfect for me back when I was cooking, because I don't think I ever measured anything once. So it turns out I'm a perfect immeasurable chef.
But that's a very relatable experience. We get that from people all the time. They go, oh, oh, my mom, like that's exactly how she cooks. She never measures things. And it was actually funny. We don't own measuring cups in our
Really?
house. We just don't have
measuring
them.
cups, and like we have teaspoons, but we don't have one of those things with the.
Do you
like a
like?
keychain
But
of
do you use
spoons.
words like a lot or like a heaping
No, the other
spoonful? I don't know.
We tried to
Yeah.
keep it really visual.
visual and sensory.
Yeah.
So it's funny because, God, it was at some points it was really hard because Heather, she'd make a dish and then I'd be like, all right, babe, you got to send me how you made it. You know, at least some rough outline. And she'll send me an email that says like, hey, babe, I don't know how long I put it in the oven for. I don't know how hot the oven was, and I don't know anything in terms of measurements, but this is how it came out. And she'd have all these pictures and stuff. And at first, it's really frustrating because you're like, babe, how am I supposed to write a recipe with this shit? You know?
Yeah, we went back and forth for a while because he was like, well, I need something. And I was like, well, I don't have it for you. I don't know. Like,
But the cool thing is that it led to a more sensory approach to describing when food's done
Okay.
or how the food's cooked. Like whether it's sizzling or it's coming out of the oven golden brown. That's kind of the back door into the literary approach to describing how to cook some food.
That's cool.
And I think that teaches people how to cook rather than just how to follow a recipe, because those are two very different things.
Kind of
Yeah,
like the
I
wooden
agree.
spoon approach.
Yeah. I mean, we
You
call
know?
it grandma style cooking. I don't know if that's appropriate.
I don't know.
You're just it's a diss to all grandmas out there.
You know, because I'd rather people develop an intuition than develop the ability to robot their way through somebody else's recipe. And somebody told us at one point, they were like, well, you know, if you teach your reader how to cook, then they're not going to need your book anymore. And for me, that's success.
Yeah, that's the goal.
You know, I'm not trying to create this following of people that read the book that are looking to me to teach them exactly how to make my dishes. Because to me, they're not my dishes. It's so much about the creativity and exploration and intuition, understanding kind of from this gut feeling how your ingredients are going to behave rather than learning it, you know, from a book. I think having intuition is more important than following directions.
Yeah, I would agree. But it's cool though because you're not like taking that from like a chemistry perspective, right?
Yeah.
Or is it?
And that's why it's not very baking heavy, because I do respect that, you know, in some forms of cooking, exactness is a little bit important. So we don't really focus on
Like
things.
bread, right?
Yeah. You know, there's definitely a couple parts of cooking that you know, it's tried and true for a reason. But I think it's also nice to foil that with the ability to just get in the kitchen and figure it out and make mistakes and develop some sort of inner compass about how your dishes are going to turn out.
That's cool. So so basically you were talking about before, and I do want to talk about like the process. So like from what I understand, like Heather like cooked the dishes and then Terry writes the recipes and tries to kind of like figure it out.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. And we drank a lot of beer while we did it too. So you know.
Yeah, sometimes when we'd be discussing, okay, well we have these proteins and maybe we should incorporate a different protein. What can we do that might have chicken in it or something? So we'd be at a brewery, most likely, kind of just with a notepad talking about how can we push a regular chicken dish? What can we do that's a little bit different? You know, we kind of come up with an idea and then I would make it and we'd eat it together and I'd photograph it and then he would write about it afterwards. Was kind of the process.
Yeah, it was
there.
really, you know, it taught us a lot about our relationship in a weird way, because when you create something, you know, as a creative person like yourself, it's like you have this kind of intimate headspace that you're not necessarily willing to be vulnerable to other people with. But when you create something with your significant other, like the intimacy you already have in your relationship is like, we've learned that it gets even further when you share a creative experience like this, because, you know, your creative impulses are going to butt heads at some point. And, you know, the whole process has pretty much been pretty easy for us because, I mean, like I said, we'd get in the kitchen, she'd start cooking, I'd help out a little bit. She gives me menial jobs like cracking nuts or some shit,
chopping garlic.
chopping garlic.
That is the worst thing. But
The
like
world needs more garlic choppers.
but it's like so imperative to like I love garlic so much and
Oh,
it's,
you're
You don't
preaching to
even
the
know,
choir.
man.
it's the worst part. Oh, really?
She eats whole bulbs of garlic.
Will you eat them like uncooked?
Sure.
I don't think I've ever had uncooked garlic.
I'll bite into it like an apple. I don't care.
One time, yeah, one of the recipes calls for a whole bulb of garlic roasted. So you put it in like a little ramekin and you chop off maybe the top, like maybe a half an inch or something like that. Put some olive oil in there and you roast it. And we were doing this recipe once, and Heather texted me and she's like, I did something bad. And she ate the whole bulb, like clove by clove.
Like by myself. I just sat down and
she's like, babe, if you want me to sleep on the couch, I totally get it. Like,
yeah, I was like, I get this. Just went into a blind rage.
So what's your favorite dish?
That's tough. I mean, you could take it from different
How
angles.
you doing is kind of, I think it's kind of earned its way into.
The thing that started it all was called the How You Doing. So a year ago, we made this cookbook for the first time for her sister. It was a handmade cookbook with about
we
about
printed everything out, pasted it in ourselves.
It was like some
we only had
childhood
5 or 7 recipes or
glue
something
stick kind of stuff going on.
Yeah. It wasn't, I mean, we had developed the idea, but we hadn't really pushed the concept at that point.
Yeah, so it all started with this thing called the How You Doing. That was probably the most creative of the first wave of recipes. And the premise is...
I think the only one we didn't change either. Kind of untouched.
Maybe. The premise is of the recipe. It's just homemade pasta with meatballs.
I knew it was going to be an Italian dish.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, with
it's
a name
kind of like
that.
Joey Tribbiani. It's Joey Tribbiani. How you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing? But yeah. So it's really before I met Heather, I never really cooked scratch cooking like that, and so she taught me how to make fresh pasta and meatballs just from scratch. And the recipe is framed like a boy, like an Italian guy talking to his mom about how he learned how to cook and how she smacked him with a wooden spoon.
Mm-hmm.
And like just kind of creating those visuals of the community that we look to embrace and enhance and encourage.
I think that recipe was kind of the first time that we realized that we had something that could become a real book. At that point, we thought the Immeasurable Cookbook was just going to kind of end at Christmas last year, and that would be it. We weren't going to do anything else with it. And we were all kind of sitting around with our friends, and everybody would read that recipe, and it would get more and more ridiculous. And you figured out a lot from people by the way that they read that recipe, and it became so fun to us. And we all that was the recipe that when people would see it, they were like, you should do more of these, and you guys should do a book.
So just to clarify, so did you write that recipe in like an Italian accent?
Yeah.
And so when people read it back, they kind of like do an Italian accent.
And it's fun because people will catch on to it as they get farther into the recipe. The story starts to come to life, and these characters become real. It's interesting to think about characters in a cookbook, but we almost, I think, feel related to these people in some way, and neither of us are Italian at all.
I know. I realized somewhere inside me I had this Italian voice. I guess it's from growing up on Long Island.
Yeah, it's not
just
hard.
Just going to many pizzerias. But yeah, it was cool because when you put your work out like that, you feel very vulnerable, and this is the biggest compilation of my work, so it really was validating for me when you hear somebody read a recipe like that and they get 10 lines in, and then the Italian accent starts coming. Because they can feel it, and that I think is a good sign of hopefully good writing, that they can feel it in that way.
Yeah. So like, is it actual characters or characters that I don't know, like they have name, like they don't have names, right?
A couple of them they do.
Yeah, there's a few arbitrary names.
Really?
Yeah. And they don't mean that much, except to kind of give this personal feeling to it, because that to me is how cooking should be. Cooking should have some form of culture and sensory experience, and maybe it should have a name. Like, Definitely. Why not have fun with your recipes and give them these like crazy stories? And
I think it would be so cool if you guys just built like a whole world, like, and just like had like an act, like a story, and like just like a J.R.R. Tolkien like world,
interwoven plots from different families.
Well, it's funny because then when
homes.
we developed the Italian Samurai, which was one of our last recipes that we really worked out, it actually was kind of loosely based off of the How You Doing. It was taking that recipe and we started pushing it into this fusion recipe. So we were kind of crossing cultures now. And there's actually some references back to the How You Doing in that one. The kind of longer that you're in the book, you start
So meta.
Yeah. I'm sure there's like so much. That's the coolest part about like being a creative is like you just put like little Easter eggs in things that like, and I do it all the time, and like I know that nobody else will ever understand this, but like to me it's there, and I just love it so much. Like it's my favorite part.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way of putting it. Even in the "Don't Jerk Me Around" is this is real.
It's a beef jerky recipe.
Yeah, it's a beef jerky
Nice.
recipe, and even there,
I
there's
would
this
expect nothing less.
kind of implicit reference that maybe is kind of reserved for us, but where one of the characters in it is Matt, who is his little brother, and it's not based on any one particular instance. It's sort of loosely based on the experience of being on a road trip with your family in the car and stopping at a gas station to get beef jerky. And
How
you know,
it's expensive and it sucks.
yeah.
It's like, how are you going to
You
charge so
guys
much
don't
for-
like gas station beef jerky?
I love it. But you kidding me? It's like 3 pieces for $6. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it's amazing. and so you have a recipe for making your own jerky?
Yeah, because it's not expensive at all. If you have
Really?
dehydrator, you can
All
do
you
it
need
at
is-
home, and there's no preservatives in it, and you get more than 3
How much
pieces.
does dehydrators cost?
$30?
Yeah, it's super
Super easy.
I gotta do this.
You just get like a slab of sirloin, you pepper it and season it as you like, maybe marinate it, and you just throw it in this dehydrator, and you're pretty much done.
How long does it take?
Few
A
hours.
few hours. You kind of do it till the consistency that you like, because the longer you put it in there, the less moisture it has, so it gets kind of leathery and chewy.
It is so easy, and
But it has, actually, spoiler alert, I don't eat meat. So
yeah, that's a whole nother weird.
that's-
She like,
But I'd like to believe that it has more flavor because it's fresh and concentrated rather than sitting in some bag at the 7-Eleven for
Yeah.
a salt packet, whatever that thing is.
Yeah,
the
well, those
dehydrated
things
stuff.
definitely have flavor.
toxic crystals.
But they, yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to eat those.
What, those little like,
like the moisture packets. I don't even know what you call it.
yeah. God, I love beef jerky though. So I gotta do this. I've always like meant to have like really good beef jerky. I would do like bacon jerky.
It's so easy. I mean, that dehydrator has multi uses too, because you could throw, we've thrown sliced up beets or sliced up sweet. You can make little chips, whatever you want.
Your own sun-dried tomatoes, everything.
We've put kale in there, seasoned some kale, and that'll be like a top crisper for a salad.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's so easy. That's the other thing I've learned while watching Heather cook is that like cooking doesn't have to be that hard. You just kind of like a lot of other things yourself in life. You just kind of launch into it, and all of a sudden you got a dish. Okay, sometimes it's delicious, sometimes it's meh, but if you don't get those like intuitive skills down, then you're just gonna be reading by the book all the time. What fun is there in that?
Or worse, getting takeout all day long.
Yeah, which
yeah.
are both my problems. But like I'm like what I try to do is like have like just be just like know one recipe just like really really well, and then like I'll just do that for like 6 months, and then just try to like add another
Burn
one.
it out.
Yeah, just so I like know it, like so I don't have to think anymore, because
Mhm.
I hate cooking and thinking. Which could be another tagline for you. Because like cooking, like the best part is like putting on a podcast or whatever and then just like zoning out. But like when you have to like be reading recipes, like it just kind of sucks and it ruins the whole experience.
Well, that's our angle, and part of it actually, when we were thinking about the physical book and how we wanted it to come out, we had talked about how a lot of these recipe books are kind of meant to be on your kitchen counter, open, and you're following them and you're checking on them the whole time that you're cooking. And we actually wanted our book to not be on the kitchen counter. We wanted it to be on your coffee table. So we didn't design it with the physical specs to really be able to be propped up on your counter. We wanted it to be a coffee table book. Because we don't want you stopping and checking in the middle of cooking on the recipe, because that's not how it's designed. We want this to be your launch part, where you kind of look at the book, you look at a recipe, you're inspired, and then you go do your own thing.
And we're back.
This podcast has been brought to you by the brothers Gorman. And what's your company name again?
Ernie Photo Co.
That's cool.
Yeah, we've done some awesome weddings also.
Yeah, you can definitely plug your your other business on it.
Looking for a mountain wedding in Colorado? Boy, have we got the photographer for you.
Yeah, it's so funny, like, because, like, I don't know about you, but, like, I know that, like, the reason why I got into, like, weddings and stuff and just do this, like, weddings, because, like, I know I could, like, do other stuff, and it's, like, so cool to see you doing it and, like, taking advantage of, like, how awesome of a job it is to, like, pursue some creative passions. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it really is about the creativity. It's about pushing a vision more than it is about being in a specific industry.
What, the wedding stuff?
All of it, photography in general.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then which is a good segue for these pictures and everything. So this picture, did you take? Is this like one of your pictures?
Yeah, that's actually, if you want the inside story on that, that's actually the siding on our house.
Yeah.
And an apron that was handed down to us from my grandparents.
If you check out the
It's got-
details on the apron, it's awesome.
Got these
It's like a
weird little
dude
guys that are like
a
smoking
cigarette.
cigarettes and stuff.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's
like,
so
what?
quirky.
It's
And
like some weird old apron.
kind of never cleaned it. Probably should.
And then did you guys? And then who did you do this design too for like the Immeasurable Cookbook?
We kind of had the basis of what we wanted it to look like, and then we had a graphic designer build out.
Yeah, I have a friend of a friend, one of my friends from Cortland, his wife, who live in Kansas City, one of their friends is a awesome graphic designer who actually now lives in Denver. So we actually haven't gotten together with her, but we think she did an awesome job.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like I was like the first thing like when you guys like announced that you're doing this, like I was so impressed like with the artwork with it and everything. Like,
What's her name?
Aaron Lewis.
Aaron Lewis. Shout out. Thank you for
Flavor
that.
Creative.
Flavor Creative. Great
Did a
job.
kick-ass
We
job.
love it. Thank you so much.
yeah, it looks great. Like the fonts and like I don't know, I think it's so cool. An ode to the dirty apron.
Yeah, that kind of goes back into the theme of it all. You know, I call these things that Heather leaves a huge mess in the kitchen. You know, like most guys, most guys in a relationship always complain about doing the dishes. You guys
Yeah.
don't even know pain. You guys don't even know. I make a joke about it, like, Heather just up and leaves everything in the kitchen, and I joke it's like she got kidnapped or something, because it's like there's flour and like all the bags and all the pots and pans, and it's all left as is, and she's just not there anymore. And it's just like. She get kidnapped?
Well, I mean, I think it's a pretty unspoken rule that whoever cooks, the other person does the cleaning, right?
Well,
So.
it's pretty bad.
He gets some tasty food though, so.
I know. I can't really. That's one of the things. Like, I'm not allowed to complain, but I still do.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's my biggest problem with cooking is like the cleaning. So maybe next time you could do like the Immeasurable, like
Cleanup book.
cleanup.
Bestseller.
I don't know. Are you guys? Are you thinking about doing like a sequel or anything?
And that's the $1 million question.
The next thing, our next project or our next idea is actually to elevate to getting to a wedding venue and make a wedding venue together.
Oh wow.
And that
Yeah,
was a little
so-
bit of part of why I think we were trying to weave in a lot of these lifestyle pieces and stuff. Because for us, it's not just about learning how to cook or something. It's, we like to say, experience based. So what we're really into is this holistic experience of community and coming together and having this shared meal and stories and everything. And so that's kind of definitely a theme in the book is
It's
making that push for each other is really, you know, it's so easy to just invite your friends out to a bar and hang out at a bar and have a couple of beers and pay your own tabs and go home. But one of our big things that we like to do is dinner parties and really bringing that back, and not in a pretentious setting. It's actually kind of the opposite. We have a super small home. We have 3 rooms and one of them is the bathroom. So it kind of, and we'll invite way too many people over. I mean, you wouldn't imagine they can all fit in this space, and we just kind of make it work. And we've actually grown to really love it. At first you'd think of our house as not the kind of place that you'd really want to entertain a lot, but we've taken this small place. We've had probably more friends over than anybody that I know. And we just keep having these dinner parties.
humble brag.
We have so many friends now.
Oh my God.
Guys, we're really popular.
I
But
just
it's
can't
different when
handle
people
all my
come
friends
over
right now.
they come over for dinner, and it's a different sort of atmosphere, and that's really what we're after.
Yeah, I love that. Do you guys watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No, we don't have a TV actually.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it.
But anyway, they have like these dinner parties, and I've never like experienced. I've never like we don't do dinner parties here, so like
Oh my God.
I never knew about them. But like Larry and all his friends do it, and it's so much better than a restaurant.
It really is, you know, and it's cheaper. And the other good thing is everybody brings beer, and we do all the cooking. So we just have this fridge full of beer, and we live in Colorado. It's like the beer mecca. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was, you know, kind of piggybacking on what Heather said. Yeah, it's experience based. I think it's kind of this millennial tract where we're kind of, you know, when speaking to weddings, we're kind of getting out of churches and kind of the sterility of these traditions that have been carried along alongside religion. And now we're kind of evolving into this next level of celebrating love, I think. And that's where we see marriage going. And that's really why we got engaged. Yay!
Shout out to Terry getting engaged. Flash the ring.
Was because we want to base our relationship in kind of our own terms. And we see a wedding venue as the wedding venue we're going to create as kind of this, not to sound corny, but the celebration of love and this kind of celebration of experience where we see not only the wedding industry going, but like I said, this kind of millennial track, the kind of experiential based, I want to say experiences, not to be redundant, but that's totally redundant. That's where we just see kind of people deriving meaning from, and that's where we derive meaning from. And
I mean, I think the thing as a wedding photographer that I love is that what kind of keeps me fresh in it is that people make a push. All of a sudden, it's like a wedding happens, people suddenly make a push for each other. They put away their family drama, they put away all of these, whatever might have happened in the past, and they suddenly just make it happen. And I don't think we need to have a wedding to make a push for that. You know, if people just kind of fight for community a little bit and actually getting together and spending time with people and doing it over a shared meal, I mean, that's the easiest common denominator. You know, everybody eats. So
everybody eats but you. Sorry.
Is that a reference?
It's like a Family Guy reference, but it's really everybody poops but you.
That's what I thought.
Has no relevance at all, but
that's cool. So what's like, I really want to hear more about this this wedding venue.
Yeah, so
I mean, our big thing is, it really is carving out a place, because I hate wedding mills, and I see it all the time in my industry. It's just, sometimes they're turning over weddings in 20 minutes, and the next group is in, and they're rushing the bride out the back door, and they're trying to flip the room. And to me, that's not what it's all about. And restaurants can be that way, and cooking can be that way. And it's definitely kind of the underlying thread and everything here is creating something it's unique, and it's an expression of you. And at the end of the day, it has to be creative. Otherwise, why even do it? You know, at that point, you're on the conveyor belt and you're just going through the motions. So easy to do that. But what we'd love to do is create this space where we're pushing back against it. We're pushing back against the status quo, and we're really fighting for just getting together. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Get together with people you love.
Yeah,
Eat
actually.
together.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And like, I especially love like the concept of just like designing everything. It's like, well, what would you want to happen here? Like, you know, like you can get so creative with it, in my opinion.
And that was kind of when we were writing the book, that's kind of how we felt. Because at first we felt like we needed to follow a cookbook, the way that they're all written, where you have your measurements and your ingredients and then the process and maybe a picture. And the more we started looking, you know, I mean, we've looked at hundreds of cookbooks, I feel like, at this point, and the pictures are small, the lighting is terrible, it doesn't really look that good. And then there's just this long recipe, you know, it'll be like, sift these ingredients in a separate bowl, whisk this, and then do this, and it's so complicated. And we kind of want to just break free of all of that and make it visual and make it. Are you on the picture of Riddle there?
Oh yeah, we also have a wheelchair dog. That's kind of a non sequitur.
All of our animals are in the book. Our animals are kind of, it's a big part of our daily life.
That's cool. Looking at this now, it actually does, like, it's cool. It's like knowing that you're like a wedding photographer. Like, this is actually done like in a way that someone would make a wedding photography book, which is so cool
I make
too.
albums all the time, and I'm so used to layout in that way. And
it's
for
like
me,
the
it
same
should have
layout.
been, it needs to be artistic. And that was one of the things that I felt was lacking in a lot of cookbooks, is it wasn't artistic. It wasn't visually appealing anymore. And, you know, that's kind of what I do for a living. So it was very easy.
It reinforces the sensory approach, because, okay, you look at this recipe, you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just got all these words and I don't know how to put them together. But you got kind of the puzzle pieces to put them together. And then if you look back at the pictures, you can see what it's supposed to be, or, you know, a general
what it
guideline.
could be, or yeah.
Okay, so do you do this with everything? Like, you have the ingredients here.
Yeah, so that's kind of the pattern.
So
that
that's
you'll
nice.
notice.
So if like I want to make one of your recipes, I just take a screenshot of this or a picture of this and go to the store.
Yeah,
and just get everything.
That's what you need. But we don't want to tell you a quarter of a teaspoon of salt.
Yeah,
and so
maybe
this is cool. So like for this, like cucumber, sushi rice, parsley, lamb, feta, tomato. red onion. I guess like for me, like, because I love feta, so I would just get like a ton of feta
Yeah.
and like a ton of red onion, and then like all the other stuff, like maybe small portions or whatever, and like it would be like a big fat Greek sushi.
All of
Feta.
the names, you'll notice all
Salad.
the names are kind
Whatever.
of comedic and ridiculous. And
Yeah, so
I don't really know how that got started, that idea. Another brewery idea.
the cross cultural or the weird names.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
The weird names, how we came up with that.
Because that's the kind of creative people that we are.
All right, done.
I would expect nothing less.
But I mean,
Senor Sopa.
that one was like a preliminary choice, and then it just kind of stuck.
A couple of
We're
things
just like,
just
it's so
stuck.
stupid,
And we,
like Mr. Soup. That's just stupid, you know?
Senior Soup.
So I wanted to change that from the beginning, but I was just like, it's so dumb. It should just stay. And
Yeah, it's perfect.
and some of them are meant to be that, just kind of dumb and ridiculous. And let it be lighthearted. Have fun. Make fun of it.
Yeah, I love it. And so like, how does this even work? Like writing your first book, like knowing where to go, like how to get it published, how to print pictures, like what, like
yeah, so we self-publish through Blurb, and it's super easy. You can just, I feel like I'm doing an infomercial, but you can like,
shout out to Blurb.
they give you the software. I think it's called Bookwrite with WR, right? Bookwrite, IGHT. And you just build it on their software. And luckily Heather did all the design. I mean, she also did all the photography. So she spent all this time tinkering and working all the pages, but it really was kind of easy. You just don't mean to like, take away from the hard work you put in, but you just kind of build it in there.
I don't remember it being that easy.
And you just send them a proof, and then when you're finished, you send them a proof. They send it back, and then you give them the okay to print. That's pretty much all there is to it.
And then you're selling on Amazon.
We're on Amazon Kindle. We're gonna go on to like regular Amazon. We kind of wanted to get through the holidays right now. So you can't
buy this
first
hard
goal.
copy in Amazon right now.
Not yet, but the nice thing about self-publishing is you can legally sell your book on your own website. So the more we started getting into this, the more we learned. And one of the big things with traditional publishing is you give up most of your rights. And you don't get to control
more
your
specifically, you give up publishing rights. So if you with Blurb, you can get them to assign an ISBN to you. You know, the ISBN, the book, the number on the back of the book. That's kind of a catalog way to keep track of the book, whether it's in a library or in a store. That's what they use as an inventory tool. So you can get one assigned to you, but that means you're assigning the publishing rights to Blurb. So you have control.
So I'm sure it costs. It's like a premium
It's
feature.
actually free.
Oh, really?
But the reason it's free is because they control the publishing rights. So you can control the content, but say down the line you wanted to publish more or 100, however many books you want to publish, they could potentially say no because now they gave you the ISBN. So
it's a lot of legal speak.
the ISBN, some people consider it a racket. I read a whole bunch of articles on it. They're saying it might be getting phased out as we transition into this ebook world where, like I said, ISBN's, the number on the back, is for keeping control of physical copies in stores. So if they don't have physical copies in stores, then
It has a lot of legal information behind
then
it all.
therefore you might not need ISBNs anymore. But
For us, it was more important to retain complete ownership over it, so we get executive decisions over.
And you
everything.
could print more if you need.
Yeah.
We can print as many as we want. We can sell them wherever we want for whatever price we want.
Yeah, and so with the there's like essentially an agency that gives out the ISBNs. There's one or two that in the United States, it's different international and stuff. But you have to, it's kind of an accrediting agency. But people think it's a racket because if you don't have it, then you can't be in bookstores and stuff like that. And like I said, as ebooks come into more and more popularity, you don't need to have an ISBN to sell your book on Amazon.
I mean, it's definitely a changing industry. And actually, that was one of the things that we thought about when we were making a cookbook is where are people actually going for recipes now? And the answer, especially for millennials, is Pinterest and Google. And it's very easy to just kind of plug it into a search engine for how to make something. So when we were thinking about how do we keep print alive in that way, we realized that we needed something that was very different. People, especially people our age, aren't just going to a bookstore and spending money on something that they can just get on Pinterest for free. So that was, I think, part of the angle on the lifestyle pieces too, and was making it more than just a compilation of recipes. It was really bringing in something that you can hold and laugh about and joke and kind of read out loud and have fun with.
That's cool.
I kind of took off from the ISBN question.
So for these images, did you use like a macro lens to take these, or?
Most of them are taken on a macro that I have, so I was able to get a lot of detail that you just can't get otherwise. To me, it was really important to be able to see things that you might not see with the naked eye right away.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like the photography in this really is cool. It's I feel like it's like so cool too. I mean, like I said it before about like how you are a photographer. So like just looking at this as like a photography work is like such a cool aspect of it too. You know. So you said you wanted to like read a couple.
Yeah, sure. I said, we talked about the how you doing, so I think we could start there.
So these are all like so this is like poetry mostly, or?
It's a
Each
mix.
one has its own voice.
Okay.
Sometimes
really,
they're,
some of them are more serious. Some of them even get heavy at points. I think Shantaram really, I mean, it can almost weigh you down. Like there's some philosophical stuff in there.
Yeah,
and then the minute we start to get a little bit heavy, we'll throw something completely ridiculous your way, and it lightens it back up again. And
yeah, so it
you
could
kind
be
of can read it cover to cover.
It can be construed as anything between poetry and prose and everything in between.
Nice. I like it. So which one do you want? I'm not reading because I don't know how to.
You don't want to read? I feel like we should make you suffer through a recipe.
Yeah, actually that could be fun.
It's been pretty fun putting people on the spot because you really.
So I'm gonna read the how you doing. Like I said earlier, it's kind of like the flagship of this book. This is where it all began.
Okay.
Spaghetti and meatballs. Pretty basic ingredients, semolina flour, eggs, sea salt, olive oil, Roma tomatoes, basil, thyme, garlic, ground beef, breadcrumbs. I still got a mark from it, Look, funny enough, it's from the very day Mama taught me how to cook. I was reaching into the pot. Big mistake. I swear the wooden spoon stuck to my friggin' hand. Anyway, what was I supposed to do? She tossed Roma plum tomatoes, rosemary, garlic, thyme, basil, and salt and pepper into a pot and let it sit there for like 6 hours. Get out of here. So I'm literally about to stick my finger into the sorcerer's sauce and thwap. Wooden spoon on the back of my hand. Corporal punishment, my man. In my own house. Anyway, this is all while her back was to me. I didn't think she would see. She was all dicing onions and garlic and stuff, cracking an egg, adding it to the ground beef and breadcrumbs. Ears of an elephant. I swear. This was after she made a mound of semolina, the kind of flour you make pasta with. And she cracked an egg in there like a bird in a nest. I swear, she covered her hands in olive oil, massaged that dough until it was like wet enough to like stick together, yet dry enough to like not stick to your hands. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'll never forget that. Because right after she whacked me with that wooden spoon, she looked directly in my eyes and said, "How you doing?" So that's kind of the idea.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, so there's a story there. There's kind of this culture. You can see it, you can visualize it, but believe it or not, in that story is actually kind of how you make it, and some key things,
Yeah.
When we were talking about developing intuition, even though it sounds ridiculous, the line about, wet enough to stick together, but, dry enough to not stick to your hands, really came from him asking, like, how do you know when the dough's ready and stuff? And
From Terry asking.
yeah. And us bouncing ideas off each other and almost getting frustrated in that space where I'm trying to communicate to him how I've done this thing that to me, I have a hard time putting in words. So this is kind of how it ended up in that space a little bit.
I could totally see like someone like having to like cook. I'm having company over in an hour. I have to cook, and then you have this book, and there's like fucking guys. Like I gotta read through all this shit. Like just like throw it against the thing. Like.
That's great if that happens. I want people to have some sort of a reaction.
Yeah, and I mean, the literary stuff in there, kind of like crack an egg like a bird in a nest. You got like a mound of semolina on the table.
It's funny.
nestle out a little
And
nest in the middle.
You make
and
a well
crack an
out
egg
of
in
it,
there.
and that's how
Yeah.
you start to incorporate the dough, and you knead it. And I mean, it really, there is actually, believe it or not, a recipe in there. We just don't give it to you
I have
right
to
away.
say, Terry, you did a little of the spoken word stuff, and I like it. You have like a great voice for it, like the way you read it, like it's really cool.
I really have this inner Italian. I don't know where it comes from. Like I said, I think it's like one too many pizzerias.
Yeah.
I'm 40% garlic at this point, so that's
We should give you a layup.
All right.
One that doesn't involve so much.
what about the hollaback?
Hollaback's cool. I think the Jesus Christ might be funnier.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, it is called the Jesus Christ.
So the Jesus Christ came from. See that?
Jeez Louise.
This one's funny because it came from Heather loves cheese so much that we are like, cheese is like her Jesus Christ. It's like what she worships.
Mm-hmm.
And so that recipe is written like the first book of the Bible. It's
the Old Testament.
the Old Testament,
yeah, believe it or not, this recipe is loosely based off of that.
which we bounced it off her very religious sister. She wasn't offended. She actually liked it the
She
best.
said this is her favorite recipe, so,
we're not-
I'll take that as a win.
We're not alienating a whole
All right,
whole
good.
market.
Because I would never allow for any anti-religion on this show.
Cheese is a religion.
Okay.
Maybe that's the point we're making.
Yeah, I love it.
This is called Jesus Christ.
All right. In the beginning, there was burrata. The rest of the dish was empty, devoid of light, until a navel orange as bright as the sun rolled onto the table, slicing the void. The brightness broiled the edges of darkness, concentrating water into sweetness, separating it from the smoky rind. Then vegetable herbs began to emerge: basil, thyme, oregano, blended together, uniting an olive-colored oil. Living yeast became sourdough, crisping in the heat of the light until crunchy. Then the burrata reappeared to rule over the dish, peppered with salt from the sea, and drizzled with herbaceous oil.
Nice. Yeah, you got it.
And it was all very good.
That was a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
And that's pretty much a mirror.
Oh, and then you said that you capitalized every.
Yeah. So when you're
Everything.
reading it,
So if you see slicing the void,
Yeah.
you're slicing navel oranges.
Yeah.
Like that's how all that.
Okay. Yeah.
to
No,
play.
it's cool. I feel like you could. Were you like considering like doing more highlights for that? For like
We thought about it. We didn't like the way it looked.
Yeah.
We thought
Yeah, I
about
wanted to
capitalizing
be-
the whole word.
Mhm.
aesthetically really clean. You
Yeah,
know, I
no,
guess
it
that goes back
definitely
to me
is.
designing wedding albums and stuff so much
So-
as I have this very
Okay.
distinct sort of vision that we
But
were
so you
working with.
capitalize slicing here.
Right, because
Right.
that's part of the process. So for us,
Gotcha.
anything that would have been in the recipe standalone is capitalized. So slicing is
Gotcha.
going to be capitalized. Your ingredients in there are capitalized.
Okay. Very cool.
But if it's not part of the process, it's going to be lowercase.
And then this is the picture for the Jesus Christ.
It's a sexy picture.
Although when I first heard it, I kind of envisioned Jesus on the cross with cheese just hanging down.
That's how I feel when I eat
It's
cheese.
weird, Gorman.
Yeah. All right. Let's we'll end on that note. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, just thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We're happy to be here we get the inaugural
Break in
casting
the couch.
the casting
Podcasting couch.
The pod-
Podcasting
the
couch.
podcasting couch session, which is probably good because it's going to get dirtier from here on out.
Yes.
And we're just happy that we can make this work.
Yeah. Where can people buy it?
You can buy it on the immeasurablecookbook.com. It was a discount until
There's still a
the end of the
discount.
year, so you got until the end.
Well, hopefully, I'll get this podcast out before then.
And yeah, we just ship it straight from our house. It's really kind of
Maybe we'll
super,
do a podcast discount.
super independent. It comes,
You'll release the access
Ooh,
code.
I like that.
Yeah,
Ooh,
cutting edge.
the business mind over here.
I love it.
Yeah, just thank you for having us.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. We're stoked.
Nice. All right. Done.
Hell yeah.
Boom.